I'm just sitting in the fucking shitter listening to the RowdCAST. So take your iPods out, stick them up your ass, and put them on blast, cause shit's about to get really fucking weird.
The RowdCAST contains adult languages, adult themes, and adult situations. Viewer discretion is advised.
No!
Yeah, motherfuckers. Alright, I'm sick of this shit. I've been trying for over an hour, to get this motherfucker rolling. And, I haven't been able to. So, I don't know what to fucking do, but we're having major technical difficulties, to get Meg on the line. And I don't know why. I've never, in 2 years of doing this fucking thing, have I ever had problems like this. You know? I've never, ever in my life had to deal with this fucking bullshit. So, hopefully we can get her on the line. But the disconnection, the internet, my thing has died, so it's not, it won't take. It shut my whole studio down. My whole computer won't even run the speaker app that I run to record. And I've tried to uninstall it, then I've reinstalled it, and nothing. It won't reinstall. It's saying there's an error. I ran a virus scan, nothing came back. So I loaded everything on another computer. Took me a while. Got all that fucking loaded up, and got her on the line, and we started to go and started to play the intro, and by the intro ended, everything cut off and disconnected. So, just kind of awestruck of what the fuck is, going on. Hopefully she's going to call me here in a second. I'll try to call her back. Let's see. Yeah, well, I think I'm a little low here. Let's see if I can bring that up just a tad. Let's try it again. One more time. Fingers crossed. Fingers fucking crossed. We might have it. Might get it. We might get it. Please, Jesus. Please, Jesus.
Hello?
Are you there?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. We're going live. I can't wait any longer. This shit's bullshit. So
Okay.
I've tried way too fucking hard. Spent over an hour trying to put this fucking shit together, and I don't know what you did or who you pissed off, but somebody doesn't want you to talk, obviously, because I've never, like I was just saying, in 2 years of doing this, I've never had any problems with turning this thing on and going live. So it's fucking crazy. So
right? Like I said, I've been having a lot of issues with my Facebook and stuff ever since I had that viral video and had like 500 friend requests.
How many, and a lot of people seen that video too, right? Because a lot of people shared that video.
Yeah, I think last time I checked it was like 237,000 views.
Holy shit. And explain to me exactly what the video showed. This is now, for everybody that's listening, we are live now. This is Megg Marie. She spent some time out. She went to it sounds like she had quite the journey out to the Standing Rock Reservation. And did you go out there to protest or just to be there? Or?
Yeah, I went out there to pretty much do anything we can, to help. It's a lot more than just protesting. Actually, they don't like to be called protesters because what we're doing out there is trying to protect the earth, trying to protect the water. It's so much more than a protest, pretty much.
Yeah. And so exactly what happened in the video that you shot? Because I seen it, but explain in your words like what you were seeing and what that all meant and what was going on there.
Okay, well, we had just left Fargo, North Dakota. We were probably about 100 to 120 miles from the reservation, traveling on 94. And we came up on a military convoy that was probably a good mile and a half long, if not more. I mean, there was just so many vehicles. So we had tried to live stream it, actually. and our live streams feeds were being jammed. So I started recording with just the regular, recorder on my phone. And we were just passing through the convoy, and at the end of the video, you can actually hear me say that somebody had come up behind us. An unmarked vehicle had came up behind us real close, started riding.
Yeah, you said you were being
bumper.
Followed or something. You said you
yeah,
thought.
we were definitely being followed, and they were trying to scare us, and it worked. I stopped filming. I wish I didn't. But yeah, so basically, as soon as I finished filming that video, I uploaded it instantly to book, and within 2 minutes, my car was smoking. It actually burst into flames. We were on the side of the road.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were us women were like waving frantically, trying to get the convoy or anybody to stop and help us, and they all just kept going right on past us.
Wow. How many trucks are we talking? I mean, how big was the convoy?
Like I said, it probably went on for like a good mile and a half. Like that video that I took is just a very small portion of the convoy. The trucks, like, towards the front had, like, the guns on the back of them and the seats and stuff, but sadly I didn't get any of that on video.
And they were all going to this, where the people were.
Yeah, they were all heading towards Standing Rock.
Yeah. How many people are you talking that were fucking there? Like, I mean.
At the camp?
Yeah.
I'd probably say there was a few thousand there while we were there. There's different camps set up all over the place. So we were actually in Ochetti, not Sacred Stone Camp, but from what I was hearing, Ochetti was one of the bigger ones there. Red Warrior Camp's actually located in the middle of that camp.
Wow. Do you think that, what kind of car were you driving? Do you think that do you think they might have had something?
04 Trailblazer.
Really?
Yeah, I had it tuned up and looked at right before we left. Everything was good.
That's kind of scary.
Basically, they set transmission hose headed, and it was leaking transmission fluid everywhere, and that's what started the fire. Luckily, we were able to get the fire put out with all the water we were bringing to donate, actually, to the camps.
Wow, luckily you had that, though.
Yeah, for sure.
That's fucking crazy, though. You never know, dude. Nowadays, they got fucking guns and shit. They probably shoot at your car, make it overheat, and blow up.
Right. Laser. And I don't think it was a coincidence at all.
Doesn't seem like that. It's kind of crazy. Do you think that for a fact that everything was kind of jammed? Was it like that when you were there too?
Well, no. When we were there, actually, you couldn't get any service because the camp's kind of located in like a little valley. So to get service, you had to hike up a hill. They actually had a hill there called Facebook Hill where everybody would have to go to get a few minutes of reception.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like hell of a fucking adventure. How'd you get home?
We flew.
Oh, you flew back?
Yep, definitely. But, we got towed to Jamestown, North Dakota after the stuff had happened with my car. And I had posted that video maybe thinking like 5 or 10 people out of my whole friends list would watch it. And within just a couple hours of me posting it, it had gone viral. And I had friend requests, people messaging me, supporting us, thanking us, asking us if we need anything, offering rides, and that's actually how we ended up getting the rest of the way. A really amazing woman named Bobby and her husband came in 2 vehicles to pick the 5 of us up and all our supplies and donations and take us to camp.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. I met a lot of really awesome people because of what happened with my car. So it all kind of happened like for a reason, I think. It's all good.
Yeah, it's all meant to happen.
We were all okay, that's all that really mattered.
Wow. Now when you were there, when you got out there, how long did you spend out there?
Well, we got there Thursday. We got there Friday. It was about 3 or 4 days we were out there at camp.
Gotcha. How what was it like? Was there any kind of clashes with the National Guard or any of the law enforcement or anything they had out there?
No, not at all, actually. The night before we had got there, the National Guard had roadblocks set up at every intersection around the camps. I heard they were grilling people, like, what are you doing out here?
Yeah. I think he just put me on hold. It says call is on hold, so maybe you put me on hold? Because I don't think it's on me. Huh. Never seen that before. Just an interesting turn of events, people. This is... I mean, I've never had these kind of problems. I don't even know how you can put a fucking call on hold.
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. I don't know how long that was off.
It was just probably 30 seconds or so. But yeah, I thought that the fucking government was trying to shut you down again. I didn't know.
No, I have people trying to call me. I'm sorry.
Gotcha. No,
it's from my phone.
Oh, it's cool. No big deal. But yeah, you said everything was pretty peaceful. Everybody was getting along. There wasn't really any clashing or anything like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, when we had first got down there, it was Friday because as soon as we got there, we actually hitched a ride to Bismarck with a pretty nice dude named Mark. What up, Mark? Got to give him a shout out. And
Yo, Mark.
Yeah, so he took us to Bismarck for the rally outside the Capitol building to wait for the judge's ruling on if it was going to continue, if it was going to stop. And there was actually youth runners from Standing Rock who had ran all the way to Capitol building that morning to await the decision. So we got there before the runners got there and got to see them coming in, which was a pretty powerful moment.
Now, what was what? Sorry for me not knowing too much because I'm a dumb fuck. What was the decision that was made? Did they make the call to back off, or did they?
Apparently, it was supposed to. You know, I got online later that day and I seen all these headlines. Breaking news: Obama stopped construction on the Dakota Access Pipeline.
Yep, I seen the same shit. Yeah,
it didn't happen.
Okay.
Basically, all that happened was they decided to temporarily pause construction for further consideration, and they stated they weren't going to go under the river at this point in time. But basically, all they're doing is trying to draw it out. It was a small victory, you know, but it wasn't anything near what we want to happen.
Get people to fucking forget about it, and then they go back and...
Right. I honestly think if they try to drag it out as long as they can, they think people are going to kind of dissipate, you know, and people are going to forget and not care anymore. But that's just not true. I mean, people are out there setting up permanent structures for winter, building teepees. Like, people are in it for the long haul. Actually, a couple of my friends that are out there with me are coming home next week to gather a couple of supplies and heading back out there and staying the winter.
That's so awesome, dude. That's what we need. We need more people like that because a lot of people forget that fucking if Mother Nature doesn't want us here, we're not going to be here anymore. You know, there's no ifs, ands, buts about that. Like, the shit going on with fracking. You know, I've been sitting here for fucking at least 2 years of doing this podcast saying how dangerous fracking is and how fucked up it is and how much shit they're destroying. And I've had so many people, you know, talk about the growth and the economics and, you know, how good it actually is that we're doing that and using our own oil. And but now they've just come out in the last month or so and said that we have tore up the ground out west so bad in Oklahoma and Texas and Colorado and those areas that fucking all those areas are as prone to earthquakes now as California is. Did you know that?
Yeah, I actually did hear that. And, you know, I spoke with a family that was camped near us. I believe Crow Nation they were. But anyways, they were telling us about how sick everybody is on the reservation from the drilling and the oil flares. They say everybody out there, including the little kids, have puffers, which we call inhalers, you know. And basically it's just wreaking havoc on their lungs from all the gas that's coming up out of the ground and stuff.
Holy fuck.
And people are really sick, but they're refusing to leave because it's their land, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it gets to me is who gave them the permission that they can go through that, you know?
I'm not sure.
It doesn't make sense because, one thing that, Shane Hamer's been on here, and he said this so many times before that, everybody talks about Black Lives Matter and all this shit, and, I'm not saying that the things that happened to African Americans and, Africans wasn't terrible, but, everybody seems to fucking forget the Native Americans. Most people would argue that they had it the worst. We fucking wiped them out and took everything and said, you can have these little shit pieces of land over here. You can, that's okay. You can have this little part, but we're pretty much taking everything, and we've almost killed all of you. And it's shitty, and we still, we gave them a bunch of land. We still continue to fucking treat them like shit and do what we want, pretty much. And that's really fucking sad that they're sick from this stuff.
Right. Before I went out there, I always thought it was horrible what our ancestors did to them. I didn't understand it's what what we are still doing to them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It never stopped.
Yeah.
The prejudice. They're oppressed people.
Yeah.
And I just heard so many stories out there that I would have never known. They don't teach us that stuff in school.
Of course not.
Nobody talks about that stuff around here. So it was pretty amazing that I had the chance to sit down and speak with the natives from different tribes and hear their stories. Yeah,
you don't get any of that in history. When you take your history class, they just teach you that these Indians were savages and they were scalping men, and we had to take care of them. They were wild Indians, and it's like, dude, I'm pretty sure that they all weren't fucking running around tomahawks scalping people. Like that's the imagery that you get, though. That's what we've been taught, but it's fucked up, man.
When you look at it like that, but could you really blame them?
No, not at all.
What was happening to them and their tribes, their families?
Absolutely.
I would do anything it took to protect myself and my family. Yeah, so you can't blame them for any of that stuff.
Yeah, and especially that's what a lot of people forget. They're just now starting to talk about renaming Columbus Day. They're going to name it like Native American Day, I've heard, possibly. Yeah. Because, we've celebrated this when you grow up, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, blah, blah. You're taught all this, but you aren't taught that he raped their women, he killed their children, and he fucking, just raped and pillaged pretty much like a Viking. And he's celebrated. People get days off of work for fucking him.
Right.
It fucking just like warps my fucking brain that this is the stuff that's taught, and that's what when you go back to the thing, it's like everything that we're told is true, or you're conditioned to think a certain way. You're programmed by everything you read, everything you're told in schools. You're taught to be a certain way, and that's probably not the best way to be. But you don't really have a choice of it. You don't know until you get older, and you can look at it a little different, and see it. It's scary, man. It's real fucking scary. But, because especially if you have kids, I have kids now, and know that they're going to have to go through the same system, and they're altering it. I'm sure they're changing it now. Mm-hmm. The stuff that's going on in fucking Iraq and Afghanistan and shit, the same thing. They're teaching, what are they going to teach in the history books about that? They're not going to tell the way that it fucking happened.
Right.
And more than likely we're there for their fucking oil too.
Yeah, agreed.
It all comes down to it all comes down
to oil.
Yes, it does.
Money, greed, power, things that really in the big picture of life don't matter.
Not at all. And we're 2016. We've come up with all kinds of alternative energy sources now. Mm-hmm. We have so many different things that we can be doing to power things instead of using coal. We don't use coal anymore, but oil and gasoline and stuff like that. We know we're getting ahead of that. So why? But you still have these certain congressmen and stuff are fighting to keep us on oil, to keep us using oil because of the money.
Right.
It's just like fucking pharmaceuticals. I don't know if you just seen that fucking. This is something I wanted to talk to you about. That Bayer. The pharmaceutical giant Bayer just purchased Monsanto's for like $66 billion, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like, why is pharmaceutical company buying Monsanto's, who does genetically modified fruits and vegetables and stuff like that? Like, it's just, shit don't make sense.
So they can put the stuff in the food that's going to make us sick, so we have to be dependent on the big farm, companies and stuff.
Probably be dumb and fucking slow and fucking, yep, whatever you feed me, I'll pour it down my throat and I'll go on and I'll get fucking Alzheimer's and I'll die young, and that's pretty much the cycle, it seems. And some people will say that I'm fucking conspiracy theorist. I don't care what the fuck you say.
Right, I get it too. Like, it doesn't matter. These are the things I believe. Like, I've done enough research on my own to go out there and form my own opinions.
Absolutely.
Instead of believing what's being fed to the masses.
And everybody should. You shouldn't, just because what you're listening to here doesn't mean that this is 100% the truth. Go sit down, do your own research, form your own opinions, and come back. And when you really start connecting the dots, it fucking makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of stuff that, if it doesn't usually add up, it doesn't add up. It doesn't make sense. It's probably not. There's something funky there. And it's something that somebody should look at a little deeper and darker. I mean, if you look at we don't have to talk politics, but if you look at what's going on with our politics right now, if that isn't the biggest circus and show and media, is that really what you want for a presidential race? Is that how it's supposed to be? It's like a fucking reality show.
Right.
And it's
it
like,
reminds me of the Hunger Games, honestly.
Yeah. It's like, it's not, and again, I think when you have this two-party system where you have either pick this or that, either good or evil, but usually this one, it's evil and evil. There should be other choices. There should be other candidates. You can't just form it down to two lines and you get in one or the other, because both of them don't say anything that I fucking like. So, and things like what you were doing, going out there, that's the kind of shit that matters. That's taking care of the country and our planet, our Earth, at least the spot of land that we are on. That is the most important. That not fucking what's going on fucking overseas, not what's going on here, not, the most important is first taking care, not destroying our land, which we just seem to keep doing. You would think that we've learned enough with all the fucking, all the coal that we burnt and all the fucking holes that we put in the ozone layer and global warming and all the shit that we've done, that man-made stuff and chemicals and stuff have done. You think that we would start to be a little smarter now, but at the end game, it's money. Who's making the most money and how much money are you making?
Right.
And, no matter how much... What? Go ahead.
If we don't take, a stand to that and try to stop that soon, what's going to be left for our kids, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren? Are we just going to let these big money corporations continue to kill our planet? Yeah,
because, and that's how I think, is that a lot of these dudes are old CEOs. I mean, they don't fucking care. No. When they're dead... They, but you got to think that they have families too. What the fuck? What do they don't care. They don't think about that stuff also. They're just going to destroy things and leave it for everybody else to fucking sort out. We're getting close to seeing some real serious fucking problems. As far as, the sun, and solar flares and that kind of shit, wiping things out, serious earthquakes, tsunamis. Like, California is fucking due, man, to get wiped out. And I mean, water levels are rising. I think they put a map out. I think in the next 50 or 60 years, I think most of Florida and a lot of California will be underwater. So what they have kind of figured out, if the glaciers continue to melt at the rate that they are. And that's what people say, that there's no such thing as global warming. Okay, there's not global warming, but the polar ice caps are melting at an alarming rate, so the water is rising way more than it ever has in anyone's lifetime. So I don't know, you call it what you want to call it, but shit's about to be underwater. So, right. It's fucking, yeah, it is what it is. But that's why I have a platform on here to, usually I can turn it on and go live whenever I want. Not always, but it gives me, I don't know, it feels like it gives me a little more desire, a little power or fire, in me, that I can do this and people can listen to it all over the internet. I have people that listen from Russia. I have fucking people that listen from Canada, all over the United States. So, it gives people like you, things that I think people are have a just cause or fighting for what we really need to be fighting for. And I think that's super, super important. Did you you said like just being out there with the people was just kind of like almost like a religious experience to you, kind of
spiritual, not religious.
Yeah,
spiritual.
I'm not religious either.
Spiritual
But
experience.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Just the sense of community out there, man. Like as soon as you pull into camp, the whole vibe is just so high. Just all the flags from over 200 tribes, lining the main road. Everybody's standing in solidarity with Standing Rock. That's an amazing thing in itself just to see. This is history happening right now. It's been hundreds of years since some of these tribes have come together, and on top of that, all the non-native people, that are pouring in. I met a man from Australia there, the sweetest guy, Benny. There's people from all over coming to join this fight.
Yeah.
And they're willing to do whatever it takes to stop this pipeline from going in the ground.
Yeah. And that's the problem with everything else is no one's ever really said anything. Oh, we're going to frack here. Okay, whatever. You're going to give us some money. Okay, we'll shut up. And like you said, it's a small victory, but it's enough to stop it for now.
Right.
It's enough to make your mark and to put forth an effort to show that when people stand up together, fucking shit happens sometimes. That's what a lot of people forget. Like, they think the government's all powerful, but there's a lot more motherfuckers like us out there than there are motherfuckers like them. And if everybody fucking stands up together with their fists in the air and says, nope, we're not fucking doing it, there's a problem. They're going to have a fucking tough time, because, again, they say we live in a democracy when really I believe that everything's kind of pre-selected. Everything's really running its course. What's going to happen is going to happen. But we forget that the people really are the people that we're who say runs this country, and we're the ones that make things happen. So, more people need to fucking have a voice and fucking speak out about atrocities and shit that they think are a big issue.
Right.
And
you've offered me to come on here before, and I actually get very nervous when it comes to public speaking and a lot of people hearing me. I didn't want to do it last time you asked me.
Yeah.
But then all this stuff happened, and I'm like, I was brought there for a reason. I think that it's my job, the least I can do to come back home and help spread the word of what's really happening out there, what it's really like, not what the media tells you. Violent protesters and pipe bombs and this and that. No, the only people who are violent are them.
Yeah.
With the dogs and the mace. And now they
Did you see any of the dogs? Sorry to interrupt you. Did you see any of the dogs that they had? They have a lot of dogs and shit. Did you see anybody getting attacked? Because I heard they...
No, it was pretty quiet when we were there because we got there the day that the ruling came out. So everything was pretty calm for the weekend, and I just noticed things started picking up yesterday with the media says 23 people being arrested, but I actually have heard that it was more along the lines of 33 people being arrested, and 10 of these people were taken out in unmarked vehicles with Idaho license plates, never to be heard from again.
What? Really?
People have friends and family.
Really? There's still people missing?
Arrested, and nobody knows where they're at. Nobody can find them. Where did those people go?
What the fuck?
Yeah,
just throw them in a van and fucking drive away.
They have
disappear. Black van.
Guards down there in full riot gear and AKs, and for what? These people aren't armed.
Yeah.
Nobody out there is armed.
Yeah.
They're trying to do this with peace and prayer.
But they were sicking dogs on people, weren't they? I mean, there were a bunch of people that got bit.
Yeah, and that whole thing that happened was so horrible. Basically, so the DAPL workers stopped construction where they were at and actually traveled 17 miles down the way to go and bulldoze through these, through the burial sites, in these sacred grounds in the middle of a night, in the middle of a holiday weekend.
Really?
When nobody's expecting it. And I wholeheartedly believe that they did that to try to incite violence, to try to make the natives angry, because here they are losing over their grandparents' graves, and...
So they dug right through fucking their grave.
Yeah, they went right through it, and why? They had 17 miles worth of land that they could have taken care of before they went there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Did it They did it to provoke them, and it didn't work. They brought dogs. They had dogs attacking pregnant women, children, horses, macing people left and right. But nobody gets charged for that. Those people weren't cops. They were a private security force hired by DAPL.
Yeah.
They had no right to do that, but then they want to turn around and try to press felony charges on the people who bring themselves to the equipment to physically assist from happening. Where are the felony charges for the people who were attacking dogs and macing them, punching them in the face? Where are those charges at?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Everybody's got to be held to their own, the same laws, but when you're digging up people's fucking burial grounds and shit to put oil pipelines through there, yeah, people might get upset. They might come at you,
Right. Yesterday, Unicorn Riot's another big page that has been, covering everything out there. And yesterday, when everybody was getting arrested, they were pointing at everybody holding a camera. They got a camera, they got a camera, they got a camera, take them.
What?
Like they were purposely arresting media from sharing this story.
That's what?
Yeah, it's fucked up. They don't want the words out. They jam the live feeds out there when there's shit going down. They don't want people to know what's really happening. They want to take their version of it, and say, oh, these people are violent and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, cut some clips up and show a bunch of people with angry faces and say, oh, they're fucking out here rioting and burning shit,
Right.
Yeah. It makes you think, though, with some of these riots and shit, it is almost like they entice them or try to get people riled up and, they stand there and fucking... you got to remember when you're going in, yeah, you are the police, but you're going in these people's communities. These people have lived there forever, and they know everybody. They know every inch of that fucking block, and you're going there and telling them they can't do this or can't do that. They may fucking bite, they may fucking wig out and come at you. And
right. You see people commenting on the videos of people, when they were getting attacked by the dogs and mace saying, where are the cops? Why aren't the cops there to protect them? Haven't they took an oath
exactly
to protect the people?
Exactly.
But where were they? And I actually found out from local that Morton County Sheriff was there. They were sitting on top of a hill watching all this shit happen along with federal agents. Another local told us that one of the federal agent cars drove down. It's unmarked, of course, but they drove down and they were just standing outside their car watching all this shit go down, and one of the natives ran up and they're like, what are you doing here? Why aren't you helping us? What's the point of you being here if you're not going to help? And they said, oh, we're here just to make sure nobody gets hurt. Like,
people
what
are getting bit
are
by
you
dogs.
talking about? Nobody gets hurt. We're out here getting attacked by dogs and mace, and you're just standing there not doing anything. They weren't there to protect the natives.
No.
They were there to protect the security agents.
Yeah, in case the natives rose up and fucking... took control of them and did that. That's what then they'd interfere.
Right, and how powerful of a moment at the end of those videos when you see them withdrawing. It just goes to show what power and strength and numbers you can have.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, and that's I commend you, dude, for going out there, and I commend you for fucking lately a lot of the shit that you've been all about,
Oh, thanks, Rowdy.
Yeah,
it means a lot, man.
Seriously, dude. Because, dude, when you got kids, you got a busy life. I got a busy fucking life. It's hard to fucking do shit like that and try to make things better, or at least, that's how I always think about this. It's like, even if I don't change anything, maybe I'll change a mind or two.
Right.
Maybe someone will listen and hear what I'm saying, and they may think a little bit differently or view things differently, or again, like you said, go do your own research. Mm-hmm. That's what's most important. I think really what you're doing and a lot of things that you're being a part of, it speaks volumes of the person that you are, and a lot of people should look up to you and try to do the same kind of stuff, because again, more of us that do that kind of stuff, the farther it goes. But there's just no, no matter how busy you are, it's really hard to do it, but there's really no excuse if you really care about certain issues and you want your voice heard. Because
Right.
nowadays...
I couldn't sit home and watch these videos and live streams anymore and cry, because that's all I had been doing for weeks. Every day I would show my boyfriend, look, this is what happened out there today, and I'd just be bawling. I would light candles, build crystal grids, send Reiki, pray, do whatever I could, but I still felt so helpless being all the way in Ohio, 1,200 miles away. What the hell can I do? And finally, I think my boyfriend kind of got sick of me crying about it every day, because one day he was like, just go. Go.
Get the fuck out of here. Just
go.
Go. Go
Quit
out there and see it.
Go. And I'm like, are you serious? And then, 3 days later, we were on our way out there.
Well, where exactly is Standing Rock? I should have asked this a long time ago.
It's in Cannonball, North Dakota.
Okay.
Yep, it's probably about...
But that's like North and South Dakota. That's like fucking fracking country, right? They've decimated the land out there. I know one of the Dakotas are like fucked because they've done. Yeah. There's no people out there, so they've just tore the fucking land, and all these farms and shit are all fucked. But
right, I mean, everything. We didn't pass anything like that, honestly, on our trip. I'm sure not saying that it's not like that. But
yeah.
Not that I personally seen other than around the reservation. And when we had first rolled in to camp, we were trying to get to camp. We got stopped probably about 2 miles outside of camp, which they're now referring to Camp Sacred Grounds. And I got a couple people there, Tubb, Sydney, what up, guys? Well, they had a prayer circle going on in the middle of the road, and we got out and took part in this prayer circle, and then we followed them up a hill and was standing on bulldozed land, taking part of this. I didn't even realize at the time, but we were standing on the burial grounds.
Oh, really?
That was the site where people were getting attacked by dogs and mace. Wow. And I just thought, it was so fitting that that's the first thing we take part in when we get out there. That's our first experience.
Yeah.
Is standing there and, praying together. And it doesn't matter, like, your race, what tribe you're from. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. It's not at all. It's people coming together as a species, as human beings.
Absolutely.
They welcome you to take part in ceremonies that were never open to, like, the public before. These are traditions that they've held close to them for hundreds of years. And people like us weren't allowed to participate or even watch,
That doesn't make sense, And
I got to go out there and take part in that kind of stuff. It was really amazing because it was our second day there, and about 5 guys walked by holding a drum, singing, and there was a guy walking in front holding a blanket out. You could just tell there was something, like, important wrapped up in this blanket. So we actually kind of followed them to tribal council, and what they had was the 1868 peace treaty pipe.
Really?
And they were going to present it to, I have his name here, Chief Avril Looking Horse, the 19th generation keeper of sacred white buffalo calf pipe. They went and presented this pipe to him and had these nations stand together, and we got to take part in the ceremony where they actually packed this pipe.
Really?
Yeah, and I stood there and cried.
They pack it with just some tobacco, or they pack it with some funky Indian medicine?
I didn't ask.
You just hit it.
I didn't, you weren't even allowed to wear your shoes up here. You had to walk barefoot.
Really? That's
People
awesome.
Were walking around with sage and cedar, and you cleanse yourself before you could, come up and watch. Women were walking around asking if we were on our menstrual cycles, because you can't be on your periods and be at a ceremony like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
So thankfully we weren't. The woman had asked, and she said, because if you are, you can get hurt. So I don't know if, honestly, 100% sure why it's like that. I know they say, like, your menstrual cycle, you're going through a cleansing process.
The demons can enter through your vagina.
With the energy that's, kind of conjured up why these things happen, or if it's just a respect thing.
Yeah.
But either way.
You still adhere to what they're asking, no matter what.
Yeah, it was awesome, dude. They came out with these buffalo hides and cleansed these hides and laid them on the ground, and then a shaman comes out and rubs sage that grows wild everywhere out there, rubbing it all over the hides, and then, did his little thing and bent down and packed the pipe. And they were telling us as we were standing there, this is history that you're witnessing right now. Remember this moment. you know, and they had leaders from tribes speaking, and the Avril looking horse guy that I was telling you about, you know, I believe he's like a leader for the Lakotas, but he was sitting there and just, you know, thanking all of us for being there, and especially the non-native people, you know, for being there, and just saying this is about us coming together regardless of tribes, race, religion, what of every color, every nation coming together to kill the black snake, which is the pipeline. And, you know, also during that, he was talking about how kind of the stigma for the natives in America, you know, they name sports teams after them, and how they don't appreciate shit like that. And then here I am thinking, home of the Bellevue Redmen.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I've never been more ashamed
Yep.
of our town.
Yep.
As then we were sitting there listening to what he was saying, and it's true. You know, shit like that does have to change. Who the fuck are we to be naming sports teams, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
After them, after what?
Yeah, and you know, I used to be different. You know, I used to think that, you know, what's a big fucking deal? You know, I was always the Indians. All these people were bitching about the Indians, and, you know, you shouldn't be so offended. But when it comes to Native Americans, again, like I said before, I mean, the fucking shit that we did to them, you know, whatever they asked for, we should be kind enough to say, okay, you know. I mean, I don't think that's anything that I'm sure there's probably some out there that have, but it doesn't seem like they want any kind of reparations or anything. They just want to be left alone. They just want their shit, the shit that they were given. They don't want it to be fucked with. They want, you know, just to live in peace and take care of their earth. And, you know, I think we could learn a lot from that way of life.
For sure. That's what it's all about, man.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
Community, we don't need all these fancy things to live. You know, like being there, just there and living in a tent for a few days. Like, I never once felt unsafe.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's how many people there?
Probably a few thousand. I don't have like an official head count, but I mean, I did a couple panoramic pictures on my Facebook. And you can kind of tell how big the camp was. You know, they had government helicopters flying over every day trying to map this camp, but it's impossible because it changes every day. It changes by the hour.
Just for more people coming in, or just you guys are moving around? Yeah,
people coming in, people leaving, you know, people moving their camp, like.
Yeah, so that's amazing, man. That is really, yeah, you should be proud, man. You should, and continue doing what you're doing, you know? Like, I know you said you didn't really want to talk too much about the circus, but, I mean, I commend you on that, too. That's a big thing that fucking, you know, especially circuses. You know, zoos themselves are fucking pretty fucked up.
Right.
But, and, you know, you want to talk about SeaWorld, we can talk about SeaWorld all fucking day. I mean, you're putting a fucking orca inside a swimming pool. But I mean, for a circus, you know, that's something that's another thing you just don't think of when you're younger and you're growing up. You don't realize that these are wild fucking animals. They're not supposed to be carried around fucking from town to town, fucking, you know. And they're lucky that more people don't get injured and shit, you know. That they probably have these fucking animals on so many fucking tranquilizers and all drugged up and shit to do these shows that, you know, we have no idea. And I think you're just kind of scratching the surface of the shit that you guys were doing.
Yeah.
But it's that's something that a lot of people should take a look at too, because we do not treat some of these animals the way that they should. You know, you ever think when you go to the zoo and you see like the leopard inside the exhibit, and there's just like a ring around the exhibit where it just keeps pacing. It's just pacing the same circle, and it's just tearing the ground up. You know, you can tell that's not healthy. That animal's meant to run, you know, and be free. That you can't. You know, I probably sound like a hippie, but that's not right. You know,
well, it's not anything to do with being a hippie. It's about having compassion and
absolutely
for something other than yourself.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know what I mean? Rather it be a different race or an animal. You know, like that circus protest, like, I honestly didn't think anybody would show up. You know, we caught a lot of shit from our town for doing it. We actually had one woman drive by leaving the bar scream, "Go inject yourselves with heroin and die."
What the
and
fuck?
Almost ran her car off the road.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, you know, it was just, but for all
probably
the
wasted.
we did
She's probably
have
drunk as shit.
Positive people beeping. We had people we didn't even know come out and bring us water. And all in all, we had about 40 people show up. And that was mind-blowing to me. You know, I was expecting maybe 10. Yeah. And we probably had more protesters than they had people at either show.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So they weren't getting big numbers then, huh?
No, not at all. Not at all. And we had people who went to the show, seen us out there protesting, took one look at their animals, and then said, look, you're right. Like, we can look at those animals right now and tell, like, they don't look healthy. They don't look happy. We're not going to support this. Thank you guys for coming out here and bringing awareness and helping us. You know, and that's all it really was about, is just changing a few minds. You know? Yeah. And y'all got to start somewhere, because those few minds we change, maybe they'll go and change a few more lines, and it'll be like a domino effect, basically.
Well, and with social media, I think you really are mastering social media. At least you're trying, until the government's trying to shut you down. But I think the way that you use it to reach people and get your message there and quick and tell people where you're going to be at, when you're going to be there, you're really good at that. And I think that's why you see the turnout and stuff that you're doing, because you know how to use it, you know. And that's the thing about social media. Yes, you know, nowadays with Facebook, this shit's fucking freaky, bro. You're fucking, you know, they have it to the point where when you break up in a relationship, they're selling you ads of your breakup. Everything you put on there, they're advertising and marketing and watching you.
Right.
So you got to think Facebook's a double-edged sword. But
I agree.
But I also think, in a way too, is the internet and Facebook and Twitter and that stuff is more of a tool to the people than it is to the government, though. Also, I think in a way they can monitor, but we can also assemble easily, and we can reach each other faster and a larger audience. You know, like you said, that video took off so quick. You had so many shares, and it became viral. So, and you didn't even think anything of it. You know, you just thought it was weird and it was crazy. Right. But it just took off that quick. It just gets to the right people, and they start spreading it in the right places. And all of a sudden, fucking, you know, everybody, fucking half of America's seen it, or half the world's seen it. And I think that we need to continue. And that's this podcast, you know, all the different outlets that I put the podcast on. We got to keep using that stuff as a tool to get our word and our message out there. I think that's super important and super powerful.
I agree. Without social media, nobody would even know what was happening out there.
Nope.
You know, for the longest time, there was just a straight media blackout.
Yeah, it's just, or even if they say something, they just kind of say, they're putting this pipeline there, and some Indians weren't happy. Some of the Native Americans weren't happy about it, and then they just go to the next story. It's like, wait a second, what are we talking about there?
Right, they're just, you know
I had read some headlines. You know, I'm always reading up on the news and looking into stuff, and I had read some stuff about it, but until you actually, you know, were putting those videos up and talking about it is when really I started digging a little deeper into it and realized, this sounds kind of like a shady fucking deal here that they're fucking doing.
What people fail to realize, it's not if this pipeline breaks, it's when.
Yeah.
Like, they will always leak or break.
Absolutely.
Eventually.
Look at oil.
It could not even happen in our lifetime. It could not even happen in our children's lifetime. But eventually, it will happen. And when it does happen, that's 18 million people.
Absolutely.
Without clean drinking water. And what? Then it gets to decide who gives us clean, you know, who can have clean drinking water. It's not up to the government to decide that. It's a basic human right.
Yeah.
You know, like, we need water to survive. We can go weeks without food, but we can't go weeks without water.
No, nobody can go without water. That's 100% true. So, but and you got to look at too is the oil. Like, is oil? Yes, we run a lot of things off of it. We've used it forever. But look at all the spills that we've had. Look at the BP. The Gulf is still fucked up from the BP oil spill. And I don't know how many years ago. At least 4 to 6 years ago.
Right, and they happen constantly. But then again, the media does not report on it.
And then, but they just, I mean, when you do that and that much oil spills into an area, you're wiping out the ecosystem. You're wiping everything out, and sometimes they never ever recover. Maybe some things will come back, but they'll never be what they were. You know, and it's kind of like nuclear when we have nuclear leaks. You know, we have reactors leak and stuff like that. I think, you know, oil is just as bad. I mean, it's probably not. You're not ruining it for as long, but you're definitely fucking ruining lots of fish and lots of creatures and animals and You know, there's again, we're 2016. We're having fucking self-driving cars. We have fucking, pretty soon you're going to be uploading your brain into a computer. You know, we got to have something else out there that we can start using. You know, whether it be corn, whether it be alcohol, whatever. Hemp, exactly. Hemp, like exactly.
There's tons of alternatives, but how could the government monitor solar energy and things like that to where they can still get rich? They can't, so that's why they're not switching things over.
Yeah.
You know, because it all comes down to money.
Yeah.
And, you know, back to the ecosystem, there's already been quite an effect out there on the ecosystem that nobody's talking about. You know, one of the most profound spiritual experiences I had the entire time I was there is I was coming out of my tent, and all of a sudden you started hearing cries and cheers and screams going all over camp. And like I told you, this camp was huge. And I'm like, you know, come out like, oh, what the hell's going on? And I look up, and there was 3 bald eagles circling above us, which is spirit animal. You know, that's a great omen. That's a great sign. And people were just cheering for these eagles and laying tobacco, and we got to do that too. And that was just such an amazing moment, you know, like definitely stood there and took that in. And then right after that, some locals told us how the Dakota Access Pipeline people have been laying poison out there along where they're trying to lay this pipeline for the rodents and stuff like that, you know, ground critters. And they're eating it and dying, and then the eagles are coming down and eating these poisoned rodents, and then they're dying. They're getting
So they're
sick.
killing eagles.
Yeah, like bald eagle. That's our national bird. Where's the outrage for that?
There ain't
People
nothing.
want to get pissed about Colin Kaepernick not staying up for the fucking national anthem. But, you know, there's your national bird.
There's nothing more un-American than killing fucking eagles, dude. Right. There's nothing fucking worse than that. So
it's a federal crime.
Fuck
you know? Like, why aren't they being charged for that?
Yeah, that's some bullshit. I would never even have thought of that. Yeah,
right, I didn't know either. And, you know, it was like I found that out right after I had this amazing moment with the bald eagles. And then I hear that, and it's just like, man, it breaks your heart.
But the people, and the people that are there every day, they see this shit, so they know. You know, that's, and again, that's one of those things that would never be told to anybody. You never would hear that fucking unless you were there. You know, it's amazing, dude. Like I said, I really respect what you're doing, and unfortunately, because I took so long, I got to get out of here. I got to get my kid, but I really appreciate you coming on. You're Megan, and you're welcome. Any other time you want to come on, any other time you want to come on and just bullshit with me, and you're always welcome to. Just shoot me a text, and we'll get you on here again, dude. So. You got anything else? Anything else you want to put out there? Any shout outs you want? Or once we're done, it'll be up on the site. You can share it with whoever you want. But is there anything else any other message you'd want to put out there or say?
I basically just want to thank everybody that helped us get there, that helped us get home, and everybody that's following me, everybody that's listening. It's time for us to come together and help spread this message. You know, we got to stand up as humans to stop this pipeline from going in. So I'll continue to share everything I can. You can follow me on Facebook, Megg Marie with 2 G's, and I'll be constantly updating and posting what's happening out there.
Awesome, dude. Well, like I said, I look forward to continuing to watch what you do and the stuff that you stand up for, because I stand behind you. The RowdCAST stands behind you. So
thank you.
Again, have a good night. Thanks for joining me. And again, let's do it again sometime. All right?
For sure. Have a good one.
All right. Later, Meg.
Bye-bye.
And that was Megg Marie. Make sure you check her out on Facebook. Make sure you check her out on Twitter. You know, I really agree with the stuff that she's standing up for, and it means a lot to me that people are doing that, and I need to get my ass off the computer chair more and do stuff like that. So much love to her. I've known her for a long time, and continue fighting the good fight, Meg. Again, we got one Earth, guys. We're here together on one fucking rock, flying around through infinity. So take care of it. Because, again, someday you're going to have kids, and even if you don't have kids, people that you love are going to have kids, and we're going to destroy this fucking world for them. So let's all join together with hands and sing Kumbaya and fucking roast marshmallows, and let's take care of this fucking rock, all right? So I'm Roddy Radloff, this has been another motherfucking RowdCAST. I appreciate you listening during the day. Sorry about all the technical difficulties, but we're going to be rolling again soon. I'll be back tonight at about 8 or 9 o'clock with Mr. Dan Lepley. All right? So check you later, motherfuckers. Peace.